Okay, I am going to go ahead and share my screen, and then anyone who continues joining us will just catch up. For everyone who is here, we are live streaming and we are recording this, so you'll get a copy of this. You'll also get the notes that we go over today. So we're going to talk about newsletters. And there are 5 tips that we will go over that are going to help you get people to open your newsletter and read it and be excited about it and even start replying and making referrals and sales and all those great things that happen when you have strong content. So the big tips that we're reviewing come from the best newsletters on the market. The first one that we'll talk about is Cut the Self-Promotion, and that comes from a newsletter called Smashing Magazine. Keep it simple. And that's from Sidebar. We'll talk more about their structure. And make it unique. And that comes from the newsletter Next Draft. The 4th tip is involve contributors. That's directly from Lessons Up Learnings with our newsletter. And the other one is read the top newsletters and steal their content. And not only that, steal everyone's content. If something is doing well, then you can recycle it, repurpose it, and that means it will do well for you too. It was already tested and verified. So let's go dig into each of these ideas and see how to do them. Cut the self-promotion. What does this really mean? You have a product, you have a service, it's all over your website. Everyone knows what you do. They know what you're selling at this point. They don't need to hear about that every week or every month in your newsletter. They want content, but what you can do is give them something that you know about in your industry, or because you're an expert in an area that they don't know about. Things that are tangentially related. So the easiest way to think about this is to talk through examples. So we'll start with Lessons Up. We offer live lessons every day in various topics. If you go to our website, you see that it's everywhere. If I just talk about that, people already know it. They're not going to bother reading my newsletter. They haven't even need to. So what do people care about in the community surrounding Lessons Up? So we chose one type of content that we use every week. We share our top industry tools, our favorite things that we're using at work that people in the industry are using that a lot of people may not know about. This could be like Emojipedia, it could be Calendly, whatever it is, we make sure there are 3 of them, and this is at the top of our newsletter. And this is why people keep coming back to us. And then they reply to our newsletter and they ask us, well, do you have tools if I have multiple calendars? Oh, do you have a tool for picking colors on websites? We've become that authority, and that's why they choose us. I was talking to someone about newsletters the other day, and they said, well, my friend's a realtor, and I get this newsletter from her every month. I feel bad if I don't read it because she's my friend, but I'm not buying a house. I'm not selling a house. I don't care. I don't know what she could possibly do. And no matter what industry you're in, remember that you have knowledge that people will care about. It's just figuring out what that is. So for a realtor, it's true. I'm not trying to sell my house. I don't need to know about that. But I would be interested in property rates in my area. I would be interested in who's moving out, who's moving in, how many people are leaving, how many people are joining. I would be interested in interest rates. There's a lot of tangential information that you're just plugged into as a realtor that other people aren't thinking about. But if you give me a very quick snapshot every week or month of, oh, this is what's going on in my neighborhood, in my city, I suddenly care. And I don't have to do any work for that information. And I just know that it's going to come every single week. So whatever industry you're in, start thinking about the knowledge that you have because you're in it, and knowledge that other people might be interested in. So it comes down to really understanding humans. Like, what are you going to talk about at a dinner party that you happen to know that everyone's going to turn and say, oh, what's that? What's going on? So something to think about. To cut the self-promotion and talk about something related, give people tips about what's going on in your industry, give them information, come up with a piece of content that you can do every week within that framework. So next tip, actually I should say, does anyone have any questions they want to ask about cutting the self-promotion? Okay, not yet. That's cool. We'll come back to questions at the end too. Okay, so the second principle is to keep it simple. Sidebar is the coolest newsletter. Every single day they publish a newsletter and it is just 5 links to something that their audience cares about. Their target market is designers, so they link out to different designer tools, collections of photos, art, different galleries. But I get that newsletter every day and I glance and there's usually something that I want to click on. Admittedly, because it comes every day, I don't always open it, but they get really high open rates. And it's, again, just 5 links, 5 things, and you know what to expect. And it's very simple. So when you think about keeping your structure simple, use a principle of 3 things. You should have no more than 3 sections in your newsletter. And I follow a high level structure of you, something you care about, which for us is industry tools. Our target market is like, ooh, what's the latest app? That's something you care about. Then there's us. What does Lessons Up care about? Well, we want you to sign up for the next cool session that we're doing. So we do have a section where we say, hey, most popular at Lessons Up this week. And then the third principle is we. What does everyone in the world care about? So we actually do a must reads of the week, and we go and we scour the internet for the coolest articles or blogs that nobody knows about, that's not being highlighted elsewhere, and we include those in our newsletter. So our 3 sections are industry tools, most popular at Lessons Up, and 20 must-read minutes. And we keep that the same every single week. People know what to expect, and each section has 3 things. So I recommend the 3 pieces, 3 sections, simple structure, you, us, we. And if you want to dig into that, follow up with me afterwards and we can help you develop what that content looks like for you. Because coming up with something that your target market cares about that isn't your product can be tricky, but it's a lot of fun. Okay, so our third principle, make the content unique. And Nextdraft is the best example of this. And everyone in the news industry knows it and they talk about it and they are just super cool. Their content is fantastic. For the rest of us, well, we're not actually talking about anything original. I mean, let's just face it, anything we talk about right now, everybody's talking about. People know about it. So to make it unique, you have to think about your differentiating factors. What makes your brand special? What makes your perspective special? If you're selling cookies, so are hundreds and hundreds of other people. But why are your cookies interesting and unique? Is there a tradition behind it? Is there a specific ingredient? Do you source them from somewhere? And then you talk about your content in that way and you give it that unique spin. So it's, for us, again, it's those industry tools. We are the place that you go to get the latest information on tech, and here are the top apps. No matter what you are talking about, there is a unique framework that you can use. I have a friend who sells teas, but his teas are sourced from Nepal. So he can talk about the most popular teas every week, but people are reading about it because they get information about these tea farms and the process behind it. So think about that and come talk to me if you want to talk more about how to put your unique spin on it, bring in your brand differentiators to any content that you want to post. The 4th principle, this one is a lot of fun. Involve contributors. That means that you have other people who are helping you develop your content and you're featuring them in your newsletter either directly or indirectly. The Skim is a fantastic example of that. This is a great newsletter and every week they do birthday shout outs, but they also invite their subscribers to submit for a shout out, to talk about anything cool that they're doing, and then they have a few categories that you can choose. This is great because when someone knows that they've submitted content, they're gonna go and they're gonna read that newsletter every week to see if they're in there. So those are direct shout outs. You can also do this indirectly. So at Lessons Up, we invite everyone to recommend their favorite tools to us. And then if we love the tool and we check it out, we will put it in there. And now we've involved our audience in developing this list. And people love to do that. They reach out to me all the time to say, hey, you should check out Backdropper. It's the greatest way to remove a backdrop from a photo online. I'm like, okay, cool. So you can do that indirectly, just get them involved in the content that you're putting out there. More directly, we also say, hey, if you're building an app or a tool that we think our users should use, we would love to feature you and link back to your website. And that's a whole other level of involvement. Now that means product creators, app creators are going to read our newsletter because they know that there's a chance that they can be featured in it as well. We, every now and then, even though I say keep that simple structure, every now and then it's okay to break it as long as you're doing it consistently and you have a good way to do it. So every now and then we'll throw in a Friends of Lessons up and just give a shout out to companies that have similar missions to ours. So we'll invite people to submit to us about what they're working on if they're also helping people upskill or in education or get ready for their job in some manner. And then you build this community that suddenly they're excited to share your newsletter because they're in it, they care about it, they want to see themselves in it. And you can do that too, either the direct shout outs or indirectly, just whatever it is that you're talking about, ask people if they have tips, knowledge, things that they want to share. The fifth principle is to read the top newsletters and steal their content. I will show you an example of this. So there is this fantastic newsletter that nobody knows about called Fenwick Media. And they post so many interesting things in their newsletters. But last month, they gave me this list of all of these interesting tools, and I just repurposed them. I took this HubSpot blog generator and I just added it to my industry tools section. And I know that if Fenwick is talking about it, that people like it because they have excellent content. I also know that because it's HubSpot, it's very popular and people are going to love it. And then I tested it out and, it's kind of a fun little tool to look at. And thinking of unique frameworks as well, cookies, expectations versus reality. So if you're thinking, how can you put that unique spin? This is also a fun tool to just look at frameworks. The next big thing in cookies. So there's like a new angle every week to talk about the same content. Cookies explained in fewer than 140 characters. So I definitely recommend checking out this tool, but to make sure that you're staying up to date on content that people like, follow other really good content. Take their ideas, repurpose it, repost it. And again, it's those frameworks, right? Fenwick isn't talking about industry tools every week. We are. That's our unique framework. Hey, this is what people in the industry are using that you should know. These are the insider tools. And then people feel like they're getting something special. So everybody has their kind of unique framework for how to do that. In addition to Fenwick Media's newsletter, which I highly recommend, the other bonus tip is follow all of the newsletters that I mentioned in this. The Skim, Next Draft, Sidebar, Smashing Magazine, all of these people are doing cool things and they take their content very seriously, so they post the best of the best. That said, the majority of people in your audience don't know about it. If you repurpose it, they're going to be excited. And also, when you see something one time, it's only first exposure. So if all of you were to sign up for my newsletter this week and I put this in next week's newsletter, you would still be excited about it and probably click on it. So those are the 5 principles. And the other thing I want you to think about is you can use these principles in all of your content. You can set up your blog to have a structure that is followed all the time, however you want to do your blog, but it's consistent and it follows these same principles of put your unique spin on it, offer something from your knowledge base and authority on a subject that other people don't know. And you can also involve contributors in your blog. So these are also just good content strategy principles to follow, no matter what piece of content you're doing. Another area that I wanted to talk about comes down to subject lines and identifying that content that's going to resonate with people. So you can go out and look at your most popular social media posts and what verbiage you used, and take what's working and use it in your newsletter. So if you've been doing a social media post, 5 wellness tips to start your day and it's killing it on Instagram, that could be the subject line of your newsletter. And people, you already know it resonates with people and they open it and they read it, and now it's going to happen in your newsletter as well. We have a subject line that we use every single week. We don't change it. It is just top industry tools. And even though our newsletter is about other things, that's the subject line every single week so that people know exactly what to expect. We did a test where we changed it and got a lower open rate when we did that test. If you want to test out your subject lines, you can do that. You can run A/B tests. You segment your audience into groups and you run the same newsletter content, but you change up the subject line on each one and see what open rates you get. And then the one with the highest open rate is what you go with. And once you get a really high open rate, you can continue testing that if you like and run another A/B test the next week until you find the most optimal subject line that will get people week after week or month after month opening your newsletter. So you start your tests by looking at your content and what's working already, and then you iterate on them by segmenting your audience and doing A/B tests. Any questions about that? Okay, great. The other thing too, as far as finding good content and stealing what works, my idea for industry tools came 6 months ago when a chief marketing officer did a post on LinkedIn that was like, hey, I wanted to share my favorite tools as a chief marketing officer at, big company, maybe it was Eventbrite, I can't remember. And this post went crazy. So, it had thousands and thousands of likes. And I was like, whoa, that's it right there. That's what Lessons Up needs to do. We connect people with top professionals. We connect people with top strategies that are working in tech. And sharing these insider tools that we know about is what resonates with people. So we did some content tests on our social media. People loved it. We pulled it into our newsletter. It became the top section. And now if you get our newsletter, you see industry tools. And in that preview, before you open it, you see the top industry tool of the week. So we always try to make that top industry tool the most interesting. And then there's analyzing what works and what doesn't. We have these 3 sections. We are sharing links to 3 industry tools every week. We are sharing our most popular content every week. And then we're sharing must reads. So we go every week and we look and see how many people are clicking on these things and what type of industry tools are the most interesting to our audience. And then we iterate on that and we look for things that are going to get even more clicks the next time. Oh, everybody is interested in these photo editing tools that are browser extensions. Great, we're going to do that next week again and get that same audience excited. So they trust us, they keep coming back, they know that's where they'll find their content. Okay, so we talked about cutting the self-promotion. Your newsletter should not be about you. Keep a simple structure. I, again, recommend 3 sections, going with what you care about, what we care about as a company, what everybody cares about. Making the content unique by putting your unique spin on it. Involving contributors, asking people to submit for shout outs or somehow get involved with your content so that they want to share it and they care about it. And then reading the top newsletters and other content that is out there to steal content. So that is our strategy. I will open it up now for questions and discussions. And just a reminder, we are live streaming and we are recording, but I would love for you all to join me. And we can even talk through scenarios around your content, either how to make it unique, how to develop that section that's going to keep people coming back every week. So yeah, any questions? Okay, well, if we don't have any questions, that's fine too. Hold on a second. We may have one in the chat. Oh, what was the newsletter? Okay, yeah, it's Fenwick Media, and I will share these notes with you. I definitely recommend following this newsletter, and they make it very easy. You can just sign up right there. But these people are just incredible content writers, so it's this easy to go ahead and sign up and join their newsletter. Yeah. And again, I recommend all of the newsletters that I mentioned in this article. And also you can, I mean, you can even take fun polls too. And like, you know, you can go on your Facebook page if you have a lot of people and ask them what their favorite newsletters are. And then you can start following those and take tips from those. Any general guidelines for subject lines of the newsletter? I hate, yeah, don't use the word newsletter in your newsletter headline. Our newsletter, whoops, just a moment. Again, for your subject line, I recommend just highlighting areas of content that are going to be interesting to your readers. Actually, that's not the best way to show you our subject line. Just a moment. Ours is simply favorite industry tools. And I recommend doing that, just picking a simple principle from the sections of your newsletter that work. Just a moment, I will like pull up the real example because it's important to see it the way that your viewers will see it. So ours, when someone gets our email, says this every week: lessons up, our favorite industry tools that make everyone's life easier. And it is the same one every single week. And then we make sure that we have a tool that people care about as the very first thing that they see. Last week we went with this Coolers app, which is a lot of fun. And we did that because we noticed that a lot of people in our newsletter were most often clicking on links related to fun design stuff. So this is a cool little tool. You can choose your color, and then you get all of this information. You get your hexacode, and you get all of the shades, tints, tones, everything that you need to know about this color to help you choose color palettes and optimize your website, your content, your blog, or whatever it is for color. So this one got a lot of links, a lot of clicks. But yeah, subject line, choose a very, very simple principle. Test it out by doing social media posts. Go into Facebook groups, post our favorite industry tools, and then do 3 industry tools as a test. And then if a ton of people like this post and respond to it, great, you know, you have a subject line that works. So you just have to think about your content and your knowledge of sort of your industry. Within that, what do people care about the most? Go do some tests in social media, see what's working, and then use what works the best as your subject line. I don't have to give away all tips that my clients pay for usually. How do I differentiate between free tips and tips people should pay to get? Yeah, I'm not too worried about that generally. People love tips, but they don't know how to act on them in actionable, meaningful ways. You give somebody like the tip of the iceberg and they're going to be excited, and now they trust you. So as a photographer, I don't honestly think that you have to worry about that very much. But this kind of comes back to my philosophy about startups, products, ideas, services in general. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody has an idea, and it's the person who is going to act on it and do the thing. And no one is going to take photos as well as you do. People are going to keep coming back to you for advice. So yeah, I honestly wouldn't worry about it too much. I would take the best of what you know and recycle it and give it different frameworks. One way to think about it is, you know, you can do the best way to take photos at night, the best way to take photos in the morning, the best way to, and just put a different framework on the same similar tip. And then you're not giving away too much. You can just give away the same tip over and over again with a different framework. The best way to take photos when you're on vacation with your family. The best way to take photos at the holidays. The best way to take photos to make everyone look at your photo. And it might be the best way is the same way every single time, but you're putting a slightly different spin on it and reaching a slightly different group within your audience. Oh, I want to take good holiday pictures. Oh, I'm going to be in the mountains. How do I take pictures in the mountains? Yeah. Yes, repurpose as much as possible. 52 newsletters is a lot. Yes, 52 newsletters a year is a lot. And to talk about cadence, you don't have to have a weekly newsletter. A lot of people have monthly newsletters, and those are great too. I happen to like having the weekly newsletter because, well, I'm constantly surrounded by all of these industry tools and tips and getting interesting feedback from people. Um, so I have something that's really working, but within that, it can get challenging. And the way that I manage that is to keep it really fun. So recently I shared decaf chai tea as an industry tool. And I do just, a quirky little thing about it. Like, I can't have caffeine all day, but now I can have chai tea all day. This got a lot of link clicks. I also called out jigsaw puzzles. During quarantine, there was a new company that was taking stunning art by emerging female artists, creating jigsaw puzzles out of them and then selling it. And I said, hey, this is the top industry tool for how to unwind after a really long work day. That said, I do that sparingly and I use that tactic sparingly because people really are expecting like, hey, what's the coolest app for this, that, or the other? But I do mix it up and add a little bit of personality and throw in some surprise things that also help me think about my content in a new way and make it easier to generate those top 3 tools every single week. Yeah, so put different spins on it, repurpose, steal what's working from other people. So much of it is constant warming of the client though. So when I ask for the sale, they're encouraged to do so. Yeah, this is relationship building. Exactly. Your content is saying that you know what you're talking about, you know what's important to people. And I will often have, someone one week will come back to me with a question about tools, and then 2 weeks later, they're subscribing to Lessons Up and they're coming to lessons because they want to be a part of it now. But yeah, that first exposure, that initial relationship building is just, hey, I want to talk to you about this cool stuff, these things that you should know. And you build a relationship about that. And then, yeah, when you go to make the sale, it's much easier. And if you're doing it really well, the sales will just start to come in more often and even more organically. I will even have people say, well, is it okay for me to attend a lesson? What if I want to go to more than one lesson? Great, subscribe. Yes, you can go to unlimited lessons. They're happening all day, every day. So yeah, that's fantastic when things like that happen. And you do that by knowing your audience and speaking about what you know in really interesting human terms and just simple human terms. So apologies, my Slack channels are going off. Yeah, great questions. Any other questions that people want to talk through? Okay, then I will just go ahead and pull up one of our recent newsletters. So remember, we have our industry tools section. So I recently called out Elf Site. This is a great no-code tool for just adding widgets to your website. Our whole Lessons Up calendar is actually built off of Elf Site. So I will mention these tools and then mention how I use them. So if you go to Lessons Up, just a moment, all these browser Zoom windows are in my way that you guys can't see, and I have to get them out of the way. Okay. Lessons Up. Yeah. So that's another thing too, is I really make people feel like they're on the inside. I mentioned, hey, this new Elf Site widget maker for websites is one of my favorite new tools. And here's why I was able to build out our entire lesson calendar using it. And then the next week I say, hey, I use this tool called Cooler to try to figure out my colors. And as you guys can all see, I'm still working on figuring out the best color scheme for our upskill calendar. Definitely gonna have to go and talk to a designer and just send someone in there to optimize the colors. I was having a little too much fun with that. But yeah, so that first section, Elf Site was one of them, and I always tell a little bit of a story about it, but not too much. Again, I keep it simple. I called out the HubSpot blog ideas generator. I called out MailerLite, my newsletter tool that I use, and the decaf chai tea. I also link back to a blog post about all of the tools that we recommended. Remember, in your newsletters, part of the goal is to get people to engage with your content without asking them directly. So it's like, okay, I'm focusing on you, you care about all of these things, but I'm taking a minute to focus on us, the company. Like, well, you can learn more about these cool things by going to our blog post about our top industry tools of 2020. And then I do the focus, okay, so here's the you, here's things that you as my audience care about. Here's us at Lessons Up. Here's what we care about. We want you to go to our Google Ads webinar. We want you to do SEO bootcamp. Great. I mentioned that every now and then with my direct shout outs, I do a Friends of Lessons Up. So I directly invited people in the newsletter to be featured, but that's not there every single week. These are little things that I put in there so that there's just little surprises. So it's not so redundant, so that my audience knows that, hey, if they come in, oh, cool, here's something new I haven't seen before. Okay, I'll click there. And then I have my 20 must-read minutes, which is one of the most fun sections for us at Lessons Up to build, because it doesn't have to be related to anything that we do, anything that our audience particularly cares about. It can literally just be really cool articles that we saw throughout the week that we think other people should know about. But I would say it does represent our values and speak a lot about us. We did the last 2 northern white rhinos on Earth. What will we lose when Najin and Fatu die? This is actually a fantastic article if you haven't read it yet. And keeping in that line with changing things up just slightly, in our must-read section, I stick very strictly to only having articles. But in honor of what happened after the Capitol was attacked, I chose to change that up because Arnold Schwarzenegger did a fantastic 10-minute clip about his thoughts about that, talking about growing up in a family that fought in the war, that were Nazis, and just kind of gave a really unique, here's what happened, here's how I feel about this, and democracy stands. So I was very moved by this, and I threw it into my must-read section and said, hey, it's the first must-see, but it has subtitles so you can technically still read it. In all of the newsletters, and I do this every week, that is the only time I have ever done a video clip. And it might be the only time that I ever do, unless there's another monumental, historical, epic event like that that calls for it. So I will pay attention to what's going on in the world and make sure I'm picking up on that and letting my audience know that, yeah, all of us at Lessons Up really care about what's going on. And instead of just coming out and saying, hi, everyone, I know we've all had a hard week. We'll just do something like this. We'll do a slight change. We'll feature something that we normally don't. So that's something else to think about too as you develop your structure. The first thing is to get your simple structure, get it consistent, do the same thing week after week, test it, see what's working. And then once you do that, you can start to have a little bit of fun, throw in an extra tool. Like I said, we keep ours to 3, but I decided that decaf chai tea had to go in there that week. So I threw in a 4th one. So yeah. Any other questions? I feel like I could talk about this forever. So I just want to make sure that if there's anything else that you guys want to specifically focus on, it's not just me going on and on. Okay, cool. So great, you will all get the notes from what we talked about today, and you can go in and look at examples of our most recent newsletters. We're going to be adding every newsletter that we've had to this, so you'll have lots of examples. And if you want to chat, let me know. I will invite all of you to our Slack community. One of the goals behind Lessons Up is to create community. We don't want to be that webinar that you go to once, have a great connection, learn a lot, and then never interact with people again. So I will be sending you that as well, along with the notes. And yeah, the last 10 to 15 minutes is really for conversation and Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, I'll stay on for a minute longer, but otherwise I will send you the notes and let everybody get back to their busy days. Okay, great. We'll give it just 1 more minute. And oh, what is the best time to send out your newsletters? Yeah, I have found that Sunday evenings and Monday evenings work really, really well. Sunday is that time where people are kind of starting to plan out their work week and get a little bit back in the mindset, and they'll, read that newsletter that came in and know that, oh, here are the industry tools. And Monday is as well. We have done some research on best times of day, so I can include that in our notes. What is your process like in creating them? Do you have specific days, times? Do you have the next one ready? Yeah, so managing a weekly newsletter is tough because you have to have all of your approvers weigh in. So you want to have your newsletter ready 2 weeks or so in advance. So we will draft it and just have one other person at this point approve it. But yeah, they are ready 2 weeks in advance. They are approved by Thursday for going out on Monday night, the following Monday. We have a small team. We're a newer startup, so we might have our approvals process might change and become more rigid in the future. But just as long as you have some sort of approvals process or some consistent process that makes it more manageable for you, so you're not stressing about that every single week or month when you have it, you just know exactly who's getting the first draft ready, who's approving, and scheduling it so that it just goes out when it's supposed to go out. Yeah. Also, I realized we didn't talk about acquisition, getting more people to read your newsletter. There are everyone, on these websites are doing these pop-ups where they, oh, sign up to our newsletter for a discount for this or that. I absolutely hate that tactic, but it works. That's why all of these big name brands keep doing it. But I prefer instead to rely on this contributor content. And so what I'll do is I'll go on our social media, or I'll go into other Facebook groups, Slack groups, and specifically say, hey, come check out our newsletter. If you like what you see, I'd love for you to contribute. We would love to support you and do a shout out. You can submit here. So that contributor piece that we talked about is also an acquisition tool for us to constantly get more people reading our newsletter. On our website, we do, of course, have the sign up for our newsletter at the bottom, but we don't do the pop-ups. And that's just our personal brand choice. But that said, it works. So if it's working for you and you want to keep doing it, then keep doing it, because yeah, I always say whatever is working, keep iterating on it, keep doing it. Yeah, it depends. If you have something that you think people will care about every week and you can create a consistent structure, then you can do every week. But if you feel like you really don't have something genuine, unique to offer, then start with the 1 month. I mean, you can also get your newsletter ready in advance. So you can do an exercise and say, okay, can I get 6 weeks of content pulled together and make this section, about best beauty products from organic materials, and I can point to 3 interesting things every single week for 6 weeks, then I think that, yeah, you probably have something there that you can do. If you can get it ready for 6 weeks in advance, then there's something to it. And to keep doing that, you can just keep putting a slightly different, unique spin on it. It's, okay, beauty products made from organic materials, or beauty products made from organic materials that come from this location. Or you can talk about, well, yeah, I would love to talk more about what you do in the beauty industry to really help you brainstorm this. But either way, weekly or monthly is fine. It just depends on how much you want to invest into making that content sticky week after week versus month after month. And make sure you're not inundating your users. Like it's got to be good content if it's going to be every week. I write sketch comedy with a couple of troupes in San Francisco, and one of those troupes has a rule that your sketches in sketch comedy, because sketch comedy is supposed to be brief, should not go beyond 3 pages. But there's one director that will always say, and if you give me a 3rd page, it better be the best 3rd page I've ever read. Like, that better be the funniest script in the world. And I'm like, okay. So I keep that in mind too, with no matter what I'm doing in content. Like, okay, if I'm going to give them something every week, there's got to be something in there that they're going to want to click on every week. That said, go back to all of your Instagram posts, all of your Facebook posts, see what's worked, and repurpose it in your newsletter. You can also do, if you set up a industry tools of the week, we have this tactic in our back pocket for what happens when we run out of industry tools. So at that point, and I don't think we ever will, we're really hoping we won't, but we have in our back pocket a tactic called our best of the month. So it's week 1, you get 3 new tools. Week 2, you get 3 new tools. Week 3, and then at the end of the month, we say, here's the monthly roundup of the top 3 from all of our must-haves. And so now we can take a deep breath and know that, phew, we can come back and do a roundup of the top things to make it a little bit easier. We're going to keep going with this industry tools for as long as we can because we think there's a ton of great stuff out there and we're constantly discovering it. But yeah, that is a slightly different framework that you can, if you do that weekly thing and you have a structure, you can always do the best of the month. And you can personalize it too and bring in other team members and bring out the personality of your team and do like, you know, this week we talked to Jennifer, our new designer, and her favorite beauty product is XYZ, and here's why. And then people feel like they get an inside look. People always love to know what's going on behind the scenes and feel like they're on the inside, which is why we always tell a little story about our favorite industry tools, like what was the project we did, why do we love it so much? But yeah, great questions. Okay, all right, everyone, I will let you get back to your busy days and I will send along these notes. And yeah, if you do have questions, feel free to follow up. You'll be in our Slack community and you can just ping me